I'm Dana Moriello, and you're listening to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses about how they made their wild ideas happen. Today, we're talking to Dave Kozuha, the owner of Greenwood Lake Roasters Craft Coffee. Here's the wild idea. Quit your day job of over 18 years in IT to open a world-class, award-winning craft coffee roaster in a sleepy lakeside town in New York State. I wanted to talk to Dave because I am obsessed with his coffee. It's truly out of this world. This is not just your friendly neighborhood coffee shop. This is something else entirely. Dave personally selects every single lot of beans in his shop and roasts them to his unique and exacting standards. If you're lucky and he's in the shop, he'll help you select the perfect beans for your palate, explain the tasting notes, and even let you get a whiff of the raw beans directly, freshly imported in their burlap bags in his storeroom. Stay tuned to hear how he started roasting coffee beans in his driveway, amassed loyal fans showing up in that driveway in the middle of the night trying to buy a bag, and eventually quit his day job to pursue this passion full time. Enjoy the conversation.
3.5 years in corporate America, and part of it was I had major health issues. I didn't really have much of a choice.
Okay.
And it was the right thing for the time coming out of high school. I never got to go to college. I was supposed to. I never did get a chance to do that. And I had to heal myself. I had to get better. And yeah, it was a matter of going into technology, and I took some night classes, learned programming, and then I taught myself 18 different programming languages, all different forms of IT. I've done networking, big data analysis, application development, performance engineering, all sorts of things in the IT world. But food was always my first love and passion. When I was young, I wanted to be a chef. And then I learned that the saying of if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen was not just figurative. There was actually a literal connotation to it because the kitchens actually get really hot.
And so did you
And
work
I'm
in
a
a
big
kitchen
guy.
first to figure this out?
I did when I was a teenager.
Okay, so
And I
that
was
was
just like,
not
wow, maybe
comfortable.
this is not.
That's
I
not
was
for
like,
you.
maybe this is not the path I want to go down. And then life kind of drove me in a direction, and I didn't have much of a choice because I had to deal with the health issues. And
Yeah.
as I was giving myself, and I needed the health care, and okay, corporate America made sense, so I kind of went down that path. Started working at UPS. It had just gone public, and it still had that sense of family to it, which was also a part of how they lock you in. Is you're one of us now,
The
like
loyalty. Yeah.
yes.
Interesting. So how were you feeling in that corporate job at the time? What were your attitudes towards your job?
I started at the bottom rung and worked my way up into middle management. I was working night shift in a data center when I first started, and then I had to prove myself and then get into the actual doing the computer programming and everything because I didn't actually technically have the schooling and the things that they were looking for, so I had to constantly prove myself.
So especially for someone who's so entrepreneurial, that's very frustrating.
It's painful.
Let me
Yeah,
run.
there's a lot of frustrations I had to deal with, and but at least I was getting better. So the first 6 years I was there, it actually was a pretty overall good experience. Well, it was a rough experience, but it was good for me from the standpoint of being able to fix the issues that were broken in my life at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And as I look back on hindsight being 2020, foresight being 2400 at best, the hindsight of it is maybe around that 6 year mark, I probably should have just left because that was where I was doing really well in life and I was already started getting my entrepreneurial back into it. That's when that was about the time I came up with the idea of for creating a QR code before QR codes existed.
Interesting. So why in
But
retrospect do you think that was the moment when you should have left?
I was healthy. I was living on my own. And I was having ideas and I was actually connecting with people and getting things to start. It was starting to jive. And I had opportunities that I should just ran with for the business. And I kept thinking that I was going to make things change there.
I see.
And
That's what kept you there. The loyalty and the
yeah,
optimism.
I have a sense of honor. There's a sense of honor that's in me that's good and bad. It really is. You need it in order to help stay true to yourself, but it can also trap you into places that you shouldn't be getting stuck in.
Yeah, interesting. So it sounds like you're doing projects while you're there. So you're loyal, so you don't want to quit, but you're still entrepreneurial. So you're doing these side projects while you're there, including this app that you created. Was that one of many side projects, or that was a really pivotal one in your journey?
One of the fun things that I had when I was working at that company is I made a lot of friends. I would walk through the building And I would just connect with all these different groups that were doing so many
That's
different
cool.
projects. And I gave input on so many different projects.
That's a really good point, that corporate gives you exposure to all of these potential collaborators, all of these ideas.
Right.
So it is an idea laboratory for all of
It
the
is.
challenges. It does have ideas and inspiration. Now, fast forward 18 and a half years, you eventually do decide to quit. So I want to go to there.
Yeah.
Long before you quit, if I understand, you're taking on coffee roasting as a hobby. You don't just up and quit cold.
No,
Okay.
I had many hobbies. There's always things that interested me. And I got my hands on some green coffee beans. And I was actually thinking of quitting my job. I didn't know what I wanted to go do. I
Okay.
was getting fed up with just the corporate the nonsense that was going on there.
What was the tipping point for you? Was it a particular event or something? What made you eventually say, okay, this is enough. I really got to find my way out of here?
I kept feeling like I was being held back. There was always something more I needed. I should be doing a lot more.
Okay.
And that made a big difference, was that constant, I needed to do more. I just felt like my hands were tied all the time.
Yeah.
And I started talking to people who did free themselves from the corporate structure.
Ah.
And I was just helping them with their little side gigs. One was my friend who started a little pizza truck right down the street from me, and he worked in corporate in the city, and he got so upset. He literally just quit his job one day and had no idea what he was going to do, and just needed to make money. So he started this little pizza truck and started making pizza, and he didn't even know how to make pizza. He taught himself everything
Good for
just to
him.
he just needed to pay bills. That was his goal. And I'm like, you got out of the system, you got out of the game, and you're doing your own thing. I'm like, that's fantastic. A lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. So I was thinking along the lines of what could I do just to pay the bills? And at one point I was like, I want to do food, and I could just go sell. At that point, I was thinking I could do crepes, because I mastered making crepes when I was 12 years old.
So it sounds like you want to leave your job. You're exploring other opportunities. The
Right.
criteria, you don't know what you want to do, but the criteria that you're looking for, you're like, it has to pay the bills. Has
Yeah,
to
it's
get
just
me
gotta
out of
be- right.
corporate America. Food would be interesting. Were there
Right.
any other kind of criteria on that list as you
No.
narrowed down the world of options?
And I wasn't just going to leave my job unless I knew I had the money coming in. So, but I had to go do something, because at that point I was working 50, 60 hours a week, and there was no sense of fulfillment. So I started going down this path of what would I need to do to create a little trailer or food cart or something and make crepes and sell them and just pay the bills. And it was, and then I was like, well, I'm going to need a good coffee. I'm like, I'm in the New York area. There's got to be good coffee around here. So where do I go to source some good coffee for this food truck idea that I'm creating? And I just couldn't find anything that met my needs. To be fair, my expectations were a lot higher than most, but that's the whole point, was trying to make something better. So I got my hands on some green coffee beans, and it was one Thanksgiving morning that I actually roasted them. I pan roasted some green coffee beans, and that first, just enough to make one pot of coffee. It was in a frying pan on my stovetop in my kitchen. And I smoked out the kitchen. I had the whole plan, window open, fan going, everything was good. That was the best pot of coffee I ever had in my life up to that point. It was unbelievable. And I was like, oh, this is good. We're going to grandma's house, and I'm going to have to bring some coffee. Everybody has coffee after the meal. So I went and roasted up a second pan of coffee, this time significantly more, so I had enough for everyone. And the problem is that it smoked the entire kitchen out. The fire alarm went off. Everything was going crazy. It was nuts. So that was the second batch I cooked in the kitchen. That was the last batch I did in the kitchen. Because it really honestly only made, I don't even think, 2 measuring cups worth of coffee beans, and smoked the whole kitchen out. So the whole house out. So you couldn't really do any kind of quantity with that method. But it did taste amazing. It came out perfect. And then what I didn't realize at the time was that achieving that level of perfection, how hard it was, and I did it twice in a row, the first 2 batches I did, and in a sense I got lucky with that outcome. And because I did, was a big part of the reason why I continued to progress after it. Because once I was relegated to the garage and started building my own coffee roaster and going after it, it was like when I tried to do it on a Coleman stove in the garage with a cast iron pan, it just didn't work. It just kept scorching the beans. They didn't taste good. It just wasn't quite right. So then I converted a 6-burner gas grill into a coffee roaster. And
Wow.
Yeah.
So I can see the threads of the engineering background that you have certainly coming into this. And it sounds like you're saying, man, if I can't find it, I'm just going to do it myself. And I know how to build things. So I'm just going to figure this out.
I'm just going to build it.
Yeah.
Just going to do it. That Thanksgiving, when I went to visit my family, and I brought the coffee with me. My uncle, who was sure he knows everything about everything, he was busy telling me about his friend who roasts coffee and how he makes the best coffee. And my coffee clearly was never going to match up to what he made. He went and grabbed his little coffee pot and he ground up a little bit of coffee. And again, the entire time he's going and brewing up this coffee, all I'm getting is zings from him. Brews up the pot, pours 2 cups, comes and sits down next to me. And while he's still going and talking crap about my coffee, and he's like, well, it smells good though. And we take sips. He takes a sip, his face changes. He gets up, walks in and takes the beans that were left. There were enough to make a big batch of coffee for everybody. Grabs the beans and starts walking off with them. And my one aunt goes and yells, where are you going with that? And he's like, this is my coffee. And he just left and locked himself in the basement.
What?
And we're like, everyone's looking like, what in the world just happened? So then we have like a 4-cup coffee maker. Everybody's taking little samples of it just to taste the coffee. They're like, wow, it's really good.
Up to that point, like you had tasted it and you liked it, but now this is the first time other people are tasting your coffee
Yes.
and they're giving you good feedback. How is that feeling?
Exactly. Everybody who tasted it, they were always shocked at how good it was. During the spring, summer, fall, as I was roasting in my driveway, people were pulling off the street and they're just like, what is that smell? At that point, I was working with 75 different coffees that I would get these 20-pound boxes of. I had a crazy number of different kinds of coffee. I was just
What?
anything I could get my hands on. At least I had good cash flow from my IT job.
Okay, so you're
it
not
was a matter
selling
of-
coffee yet. We're still
No,
in
no, no.
hobby territory.
Still in just
Okay.
strictly in hobby territory, and people are coming in off the street, and they're just like, wow, what's that smell? I've shown them the whole coffee roast product, and they would see this grill that I converted into a coffee roaster. And they would stand there and they're amazed what was going on. Then I would just give them some coffee because I was roasting way more coffee than many of us could consume. So just learning, I was playing with all this stuff. These people coming off the street, I started giving them coffee. They just started giving me money. And I was like, okay.
That's a good sign.
My hobby started paying for itself. And then we did a town fair because they wanted us to do a town fair and as a hobby roaster and everything. And I had restaurants trying to connect with us, but I wasn't a
Wow.
real legit. And then it was like, okay, maybe there's something here. Then we started looking into getting a real roaster. So I actually ordered a real roaster from Turkey, a drum roaster. It costs tens of thousands of dollars. I was just going to put it in my garage and use it as a hobby toy. But it was too big for the garage. So I had to get a building for the roaster. So it just kept
I
one
see
thing
the
led to
snowball
another.
effect. Okay.
Right. And the first building didn't work out. The second building ended up being our first location.
Wow. So along this journey, what happened to the dream of the crepe cart? At what point did you say
Oh,
that's not it
It
anymore?
fell aside. And the crepes, they could still exist someday. Part of it was I went out to just do research. I went and visited roasters all over the nation. So I got to go to some events and things while I was in the tech world, also on vacation. And as I would travel around, I would stop at coffee roasteries all over the country. And I'm stopping and visiting all these other roasters, and I'm trying to learn from them. I'm literally trying to pick their brains on them. And quickly I realized I knew more than they did. I'm like, no, I'm apparently there's a lot of hacks in this industry. I just need to go find the guys that are doing the real stuff. So then I started targeting the best roasters. And I got to actually meet a couple of amazing people. And I went to Stumptown when I was in Portland. I got to meet the whole crew over there, the founder of Stumptown, but I got to meet
Yeah.
him and I sat and he got to evaluate my coffee.
Oh.
And he looked at some coffee I roasted and I just wanted pointers. I was just looking for pointers on how I could do this better. And he tried some of the coffee that I made, which was an Ethiopian Nirgashef. It was an unusual one because it tasted very chocolatey, very chocolatey. It had a deep, dark, rich, dark chocolate note to it that is very not normal for Ethiopian coffee. And it was a fairly light roast at that, and very aromatic too. So we did a pour over of it right in the shop there in Portland, and he was impressed by it and everything. And I was telling him, oh, I'm the tech instructor. I'm telling him my story. I roasted in my own driveway. The roaster I built myself. He's okay. This is good. He takes a sip of it, and again, as soon as he took a sip of it, his face changed. He looks at me. He's just like, I don't know exactly what you do for your day job, but yeah, you need to quit it, and this is what you need to do. And he's like, who do you work for? That's right. He started with who do you work for? And I was just like, oh, I'm in IT and everything. He's like, no, what coffee roaster do you work for? I'm like, no, I don't work for it. I'm like, I told you, I roasted in the driveway on my own coffee roaster. He's like, if that's that, then he goes on and says, if that's true, then you should quit your day job. This is what you should be doing. And he wasn't wrong. And that is what really, and that was still it was still another 3 years after that 2 or 3 years
Oh.
after that we finally opened up the Triangle, our first location.
Oh, so I want to hear what happened in those 3 years. So you, with the lead up to that story, I thought the resolution of that story, and I went home and I quit.
And there was just so many roadblocks. So trying to just get a building initially,
I
I'm trying to
see.
find a building that
Okay.
something I could afford to get into to start doing stuff, and then try to get pitched to the town to get permits and things. And it was a matter of walking this line of either they didn't believe you and they didn't want to work with you at all, or, oh, wow, that's a great idea. We're going to charge you extra. I finally got a setup where a friend of mine helped us get the first location going, and we kept it in a manner that it could exist on the funds that we earned outside of the business, and then I could just focus on doing the things the way I wanted to do them and not have to be led astray by others who were like, you have to cook other food, you have to serve other food
Right.
with the coffee. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
No, the whole
Like,
point
this
is
is
you
about
want to
coffee.
do
The whole
you,
point
right?
is this
Yeah.
is coffee. Yeah, this is how I'm doing things. And they're like, no, that's never going to work. The number of people who walked in to my shop the first day we were open, and literally more than a dozen people who walked in were like, I'm not here to buy anything. We're just here to see what it is before it fails. I'm like, oh, gee,
Oh
thanks for the
my
vote of
gosh, that's
confidence.
a lot of
Yeah,
negativity. My
a
goodness.
tremendous amount of negativity. And then it's, oh, wow, this coffee is amazing, but you'll never be able to make it just selling coffee. You have to do other things too. I'm like,
Uh,
and I would love to do other things, but this is what this is about. This is the passion project. This is what's going to be.
yes,
Yeah.
you have one store while you're in your day job. You have a
hmm
physical, that's a lot to manage. I also want to clarify, you said we a few times. I know you started this business with your wife, Yolanda.
Yeah.
At what point do you decide that this is going to be a joint venture? That feels like another big decision in the journey.
It was the two of us doing everything. And when we created the business, we created 50-50.
So you two are both doing this together. You have your first location. Before you open the second location, do you quit your day job or you still have a day job in two
Oh, yeah. No,
locations?
so the first thing is that at the end of the first year we were in business and it was just a hobby. The two of us were working our day jobs, and Yolanda got to quit her job first because I made a lot more. I had a lot more resources. So she got to quit her day job first and start running with things and actually opening up the shop on an everyday basis. Because the first 9 months that we were open or so, we were literally open from 7 to 9 only on Wednesdays and Thursdays. But that was 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on
No.
Wednesdays and Thursdays.
For a
Yeah,
coffee shop.
for a coffee shop. And we grew. We paid all the bills for the
Wow.
place and we grew. And then we started doing weekends, doing a farmer's market in Ringwood. And it got to the point where we were coming back from the farmer's market on the weekends to the shop, and our parking lot at the building there was just filled with cars to the point where sometimes we couldn't have a place to park our own vehicles. There were people waiting for us to get there just to whatever came back from the market they were going to buy.
Oh my goodness. So talk about, you're getting
So people
so
were
much
hunting us
data,
down.
right? There's
Yeah.
so much demand. People are telling you we
hmm
want this. The business is growing. I can only imagine how
Right.
hard it is to juggle with your job. What was the final straw that made you say, okay, now I'm really going to quit and go all in?
So after the first year, Yolanda quit her job. She started running it and opened it up full time. And then it was actually open with some reasonable hours for a coffee shop. And it continued to just grow. And then it was a matter of months later, March of 2018, I talked about quitting my job and initially told my managers and stuff I was looking to quit in October of 2018.
Mm.
And it was April 1st of 2019 that I finally was able to leave.
Ah, okay. So slow
They held
exit.
me there for quite some time as they realized just how much stuff I was interconnected with.
Yeah. And what made you feel confident that was the right time? Because it seems like there were so many maybe now moments, but what was
It was
ultimately it?
making it was making money,
Okay.
and it was getting to the point where I was working 50 plus hours a week at UPS, but I was very good at the fact that when I was working at UPS, I did not do anything coffee related. And I had people who would come up to me at my desk and they wanted to buy coffee. And I'm like, you have to come and see me
Oh, I see.
after work hours. It's They're like, well, but they wanted me to bring in coffee. I'm like, I can't, I just can't. There's policies and
Separate.
stuff there. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't. There had to be separated.
So it sounds like it was primarily the amount of money that the coffee shop was earning that gave you the confidence to say, now's the time. The finances make
Yeah.
sense at this
Well,
point.
the finances were making sense. The need for me to be there more and more because I
Mm.
was roasting late into the night and I'd be there I'd get back from work. Sometimes I didn't get back from work till like after 7 p.m. Order food, and I'd be sitting in the coffee roastery eating whatever junk food. And I was roasting coffee late in the evening, and I'd be roasting till 11, 12 p.m. and then getting some sleep and going back to my day job the next day.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I had people coming in at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night and buying coffee from me while I'm roasting coffee in the middle of the night. And yeah, it was a really interesting thing. I was doing that like several nights a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like it requires your time and the finances make sense. So you quit. Once you do quit and start doing this full time, what was the biggest surprise to you that changed about what it meant to be doing this full time versus on the side of your day job?
The first big thing was it was actually good because I definitely took some time to decompress
Oh,
after
good.
working two
Good.
jobs. When you're doing something that you love, it doesn't have the same kind of stress that when you're doing something that you don't enjoy doing.
Do you feel that
Yeah.
stress levels start to
Oh,
decrease?
definitely.
Okay, good.
But then as I got into the expansion mode, more people who felt the need to create artificial stress. And I identified them very quickly and started just dealing with them. And it's very aggravating for people who are trying to do these things just for the sake of they want to they want a piece of the pie. They want their cut.
I think it's also an
And
interesting lesson, Dave, if I could interject,
yeah.
that in your corporate job, like you have a boss that can give you all of these
Hmm.
stresses that can be irritating. And you hope potentially that when you quit, hey, I'm the boss. It's just me. Nobody can
Right.
tell me what to do. But it's never the case that you're an island.
No.
Even running a business, you have stakeholders, you have a bank, you have vendors, you have a landlord, you have all these other people that you
Hmm.
still need to negotiate with. The relationship is different, but the need to negotiate with others doesn't go away entirely.
No, you have to keep negotiating with others. The big difference to running your own business is that you can just tell people no and walk away from them.
You mentioned this idea of expansion, so I want to end here on this forward-looking note, which is you opened your second store, both in Greenwood Lake. Second store is even larger. What is next for you? Are you looking to have multiple stores? What does the future hold?
Yeah, so I have two shops right down the street of each other in a tiny little town that has next to no population that shouldn't be able to support one of them, and yet I have two of them. And it's a big part of it is that the people coming in from outside, people coming from all over. We have people coming from the city driving out to us for day trips and stuff, and they just come looking for the coffee. And there's lots of other great things in Greenwood Lake too, a lot of nature. So this was about keeping Greenwood Lake centric, bringing a little awesome to this town, and be able to keep it as a center. And we're called Greenwood Lake Roasters. I chose that. I have other names for the business. It wasn't my first go-to name. I decided to go with that name because the town was so depressed when I started, and it was like it needed something. So I'm like, I know what I'm doing is awesome. So let me at least give this awesomeness to the
I
town to
love
help
that.
it grow. So there's that sense of community, and this is another very important part of growing a good business. So what's next? It's a focus on making awesome coffee. And I'm definitely focused on trying to grow. We're looking to grow our online sales, do more talks and things like this to really showcase what it is, what it is that we can do, what it is that we do. Focus on finding the awesome coffee, bringing out the best quality taste, and how does that improve people's lives? How does it improve society and community around us? Those are the things that are the extraordinary components of just doing a true passion project.
Yeah, I love that. And to hear you call it a passion project years later into running this
Hmm.
business is really a testament to how much you found something that you really enjoy, that it still holds that space for you.
Yeah, down the road, there's a lot of things that I want to do. I have 5-year, 10-year plans. I do want to eventually have a bunch of coffee shops with good community impact. I have lots of great ideas for that, but that'll be yet the next step.
There's
And
always something else. That's what it means to be an
there's
entrepreneur,
always
right?
something else.
You're never at a
Well, that
finish
is.
line. It keeps moving because there's more you want to do and more you want to create.
That is truly, yeah, when you got the entrepreneurial bug, you are constantly seeing more things that need to exist that you need to go and interact with.
That was Dave Kozuha talking about his journey building Greenwood Lake Roasters craft coffee. Here are my favorite 3 takeaways from that conversation. First, give yourself the freedom to follow your curiosity. At first, Dave thought he wanted to open a crepe cart, but when he started researching coffee to sell at that cart, he fell in love with coffee roasting and he chased that dream instead. He didn't hold too tightly to his first idea. He let it grow and evolve as his interests changed and he learned more. Number 2, talk to people who've gone down the path that you're interested in and learn from them. When Dave started thinking about quitting his corporate job, he talked to other people who did the same to learn from their experience. He talked to a friend who quit his corporate job to open a pizza truck, and that gave him a lot of ideas and inspiration for his own journey. 3, know your goals and do the work to build confidence that you can reach them. Dave had a clear goal to start a business that would allow him to quit his corporate job and be his own boss. He was interested in the food space and had to earn enough money to allow him to comfortably pay his bills. Those are the criteria that he was looking for. He wouldn't quit his job until he was confident that the business could meet the financial hurdles that he set for himself. So he used the money that he was earning from his job to fund his coffee roasting hobby at first. He then evolved that hobby into a small business. And when that business started earning meaningful revenue, he had the data he needed. He was ready to quit his job and go in full time on his dream. If this episode has left you craving a cup of coffee and a drive to Greenwood Lake is not in the cards for you, do not worry. Dave sells his beans online. Check out the link in the show notes. This is Dana Moriello, and I can't wait to see you next week on This Is a Thing.